Great. So hello, everybody. Welcome to the fourth Advent Sunday of December. It's a pleasure for us to be able to host this webinar for you with our special guest, Peter Weleslaw. Before we begin, I'm just following the chat and I'm seeing that there's so many of us joining from predominantly actually the United States, but I'm also seeing Canada, I'm seeing England, I'm seeing Germany. So would you mind just sending us a greeting while we're recording this and stating where you're joining us from? So good evening from Pezinok, Slovakia. If you can just unmute yourselves and just say where you're joining us from, that would be wonderful, because it's a great way to start the webinar.
Ukraine.
Ukraine, great.
York, Pennsylvania, United States.
New Mexico.
Tucson,
Cedar
Arizona.
City, Utah.
Essex,
California.
Canada.
Wisconsin.
California.
Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Florida.
Ohio.
Michigan.
Newcastle, England.
Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Northern Virginia.
Massachusetts.
Denver,
Cleveland, Ohio.
Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Sebastopol, California.
South Carolina.
Santa Rosa, California.
Gainesville, Florida.
Cedar City, Utah.
Thank you so much for taking that moment of your time to share where you're joining us from. It's a real pleasure to see that our webinars are having an impact and that they're connecting worlds in a sense. We started this series in Slovakia, and it's really nice to see that people not only from Europe are joining us, not only from our neighboring countries, but also from the New World. And so I assume it's a lot of actually Slovaks, but also Slavs, so expatriate Slavs living in the New World, curious about their roots, interested in connecting with their ancestral homelands, but also the ancestral culture. So it's a great pleasure and privilege for us to facilitate this connection of the umbilical cord to the ancestors, and of course, even deeper to the native faith of the region, the native faith, or as it's also referred to as the old believers. So connecting to that knowledge, which our special guest, Peter Weleslaw, will be leading us through. We're going to be exploring a Slavic Christmas, and we're going to be looking at a lot of those parallels that exist today throughout the Slavic world between the Christian practices we overtly celebrate and a lot of those parallel pagan practices that take place side by side to the Christian ones. Often they're unnoticed, they are peculiar, and they're often hidden in terms of folklore habits, folklore rituals, folklore rites. But of course, folklore has much more ancient roots than just Christianity. It goes back to the origins and goes back to the native faith of this region. So if we could just go to the next slide, Gabriella, please. So we are a non-for-profit organization called Global Slovakia. Many of you are joining us that are joining us tonight are actually familiar with our webinar series. We meet about twice a month where we cover different topics having to do with Slovakia, but also the Slavic world at large. Our mission is to share our stories region with the world. We do this predominantly through books, through our academy, but most recently, and to our great joy, it's actually via these webinar series that we host that really lets us connect with a wide audience of people. I can see that tonight we have 110 people joining us for this call. So welcome everybody, especially a warm welcome to all the new people that are joining us. And just so you know, just some housekeeping rules. What we do is we do a little bit of an introduction. Then we hand it over to our special guest, Dr. Weleslaw. And after he's done with his lecture, we're going to open it up for Q&A. So you'll have an opportunity towards the end of the webinar to ask your questions to him. We'll also be following your questions via the chat. So if we're seeing recurring things happen, recurring questions being repeated, then we'll jump in and we'll actually stop Mr. Weleslaw and we'll ask him right then and there the question. So that's it. So let's get started.
So I would like to jump in for just a couple of more things that are not so exciting before moving on. As Zuzana said, there will be a room for questions and answers at the end. So right now I will mute everybody to make sure that we can smoothly proceed throughout the presentation and there are no background noises disturbing us. If you do happen to unmute yourself during the event, please mute yourself so that there are no disturbances. Also, this webinar will be conducted in Slovak, so Weleslaw will be speaking in Slovak and I'll be translated into English, so you know what to expect from that as well. So with that on, I'm muting everyone. Please, Weleslaw and Zuzana, can you unmute yourselves after that and we will begin.
I'll just jump in right here. So it's once again, and as always, this is our third webinar that we're actually hosting with our special guest, and it's a privilege and an honor to share him with you and to have him actually coming on board on our platform to share his knowledge with us. So Petr Weleslaw is a published author. He's published multiple books. They've become one or two have become bestsellers here in Slovakia. He's an expert on Slavic mythology. His first book focused on the stories of the gods and the goddesses, but since then he's expanded into the rites and rituals of our ancestors and of the native faith, which is particularly interesting. He's acquired this knowledge through extensive research. Of course, it started originally with books, but it ventured into talking to people, talking to elders, traveling the region. So obviously it's not just Slovak focus, but he's ventured into Ukrainian territory, Russian territory to learn more of this knowledge. And most importantly, he's triangulated this data with his own inner knowing. So he's used his personal connection to the gods or to the divine as well as nature to source and to access a lot of this knowledge that is not documented into books. So as accumulation of all that, he's been able to found the sacred grove of the native faith, which is, I guess, a gathering or a community that practices these rites and rituals of the past, in addition to hosting many lectures throughout Slovakia and also the Czech Republic, sharing his knowledge on the same topic, and lastly, putting what he knows into his books. And he's currently working on another publication that will be forthcoming, I think, next year. He can correct me.
Actually, that was already released. The third book was released just a few weeks ago.
Okay, so Petr can share more. Petr Weleslaw can share more with us on the third book when we hand it over the stage over to him. So, Gabby, would you like to add anything or?
No, I think let's just
start.
Weleslaw, welcome. Vítajte.
Dobrý deň všetkým. Moje meno je Weleslaw, civilným menom Peter Kuzmišin. A dnes by som vám rád, ako v predchádzajúcich webinároch, porozprával niečo o slovanstve, či ináč povedané o viere starých Slovanov ešte z predkresťanských časov.
So hello everyone, my name is Weleslaw, my civilian name is Peter Kuzmishin. So today I'm joining you again for the third time to share a little bit about the culture and faith and practices that mark the pre-Christian era of the Slavs.
Ja osobne sa zaoberám pôvodnej predkresťanskej viery Slovanov hádam už 20 rokov. Napísal som niekoľko kníh, prednedávnom mi vyšla tretia, ešte v podstate nevysvetená tretia knižka, z čoho som veľmi nadšený. V podstate dopisujem štvrtú, tá bude po Vianociach hotová a uvidíme, že kedy pôjde von, ale v podstate najdôležitejšie je, že sme na Slovensku okrem iných obcí a ja som založil náboženskú obec Svetohaj rodnej viery, ktoré je cieľom práve obnova pôvodnej viery starých Slovanov, vykonávanie obradov, rituálov a slávenie posvetných sviatkov.
So Peter has been dedicated to reviving the native faith for over 20 years. Part of this effort is encoded into the books. So far he has 3 books out. His 3rd book was published just recently. He's working on the 4th publication that will be coming out hopefully next year. But Peter, as others in Slovakia, has also founded a community, a sacred grove of the native Slavic faith that was established with the purpose of reviving this legacy, this heritage, these customs, rituals, and keeping the knowledge alive.
Dnes vám poviem niečo o viere Slovanov tak, ako pravdepodobne vyznávali dávni Slovania vlastne sviatky blížiaceho sa obdobia zimnej rovnodennosti a z rodu nového slnka. Dnes máme 19. čiže tak za 1-2 dní to máme tu, ale v podstate už budeme pripravení.
So today we will talk about how our ancestors probably celebrated and honored this time of year. It's the 19th of December today, so we're going to experience and celebrate the winter solstice in just 2 days. So you're 2 days ahead, and you can get up to speed with these customs and traditions now with us and Weleslaw.
And we will be prepared for it. Dobre, čiže nie je žiadnych pochyb, že kresťanský sviatok Vianoc úzko súvisí s omnoho staršími slávnosťami zimného slnovratu, ktorý pre mnohé kultúry, teda aj pre Slovanov, bol jedným z najvýznamnejších sviatkov, či skôr povedané sviatočného obdobia.
So there is no doubt that Christmas is connected to much older culture and holidays and ways of celebrating this time of year, and that's winter solstice. This was a part of the sun cult that was important to many of native faiths, not just to the Slavs, but also to other cultures. And it was one of the most important holidays of the year, or rather holiday seasons of the year, because was not just the day it was a whole kind of set of days that was surrounded by such practices.
Najlepším takým príkladom týchto oslav sú najlepšie dochované, historicky dochované slávnosti a vlastne sviatky, ktoré sa volali Saturnálie, čo sa týka Rímskej ríše. Tie vlastne vrcholili práve rovnako o zimnom slnovrate a trvali od 7 do 14 dní. A významovo bez pochyby práve aj tieto rímske slávnosti Saturnálii istým spôsobom určite ovplyvnili tak slovanské rituály a sviatky tohto obdobia a v neposlednom rade aj tie kresťanské.
So this occasion, the winter solstice, was celebrated across the globe, but the most documented is the Saturnalia, which was the Roman equivalent of these festivities, of these rituals. As the name suggests, celebrated by Romans, and this has probably influenced and also shaped the way this time of year was celebrated in Slavic part of the world. So it influenced those customs as well as the later the Christian Christmas traditions.
V každom prípade vlastne toto obdobie je okrem zimného slnovratu, ktorý vlastne je takým zlomovým obdobím roka, vlastne bola oslava, tak povediac, zrodu nového slnka. V podstate aj do kresťanstva prešlo toto zrodenie nového slnka a Krista môžeme považovať za vlastne tiež zrodenie nového svetla, nového slnka.
So these celebrations escalated with winter solstice, and that was kind of the symbolic return or rebirth of the sun, because from this day onwards, the days are beginning to grow longer again. The 21st of December marks the longest night of the year. And in pagan tradition, it was the rebirth of the sun that was celebrated, and this is not far off from the Christian representation of this time of year when we celebrate and commemorate rebirth of light or birth of Jesus Christ. So they are very similar in nature and in the core message and purpose.
Možno aj na základe toho je ten priestup medzi pôvodným pohanským do novodobého kresťanského bol relatívne jednoduchý.
So maybe that is also why the transition from the native faith to Christianity, when Christianity was introduced to the region, was relatively smooth, because that transition was taken care of because those two celebrations were so close in nature.
Dokonca aj ja sám niektoré obrady vykonávam počas zimného slnovratu, ale väčšinu z nich som taktiež presunul do v podstate kresťanského obdobia Vianoc.
So Peter himself carries out some of these rituals on winter solstice, but he has moved a large proportion of them to the Christian Christmas, so moved them by a few days to match the Christian tradition.
Osobne si totiž myslím, že nie je podstatné, kedy a ako sú rituály vykonané, ale že sú vykonané.
Because he believes it doesn't matter when you do those rituals and practices, it's important that we do them.
Dobre, takže k obdobiu Vianoc alebo k obdobiu zimného slnovratu musíme sa trošku vrátiť späť. Vlastne toto obdobie celé sa začína obdobím strižných dní, o ktorom sme si v podstate už hovorili na minulom sedení. A to vrcholilo teraz nedávno, 13. decembra, myslím, že 13. decembra na Luciu, kedy vlastne naši predkovia toto obdobie považovali. V tom období zhruba je aj nov, čiže v období toho novu pred zimným slnovratom bola noc považovaná za najtemnejšiu, kedy vrcholili sily temných božstiev a s tým boli prepojené vlastne rituály, hlavne spojené s ochranou a očistou, ako svojou osobnou, tak aj domova, dobytka a vlastne celého svojho života. A to práve vrcholilo na ten sviatok 13. na ten sviatok Lucie, kedy základným obradom je povymetanie kútov, lebo práve v týchto kútoch sa počas roka ako keby udržiavala alebo uskladňovala tá aj naša zlá, povedzme, energia, alebo naše síly, naše spomienky, naše zlé veci idú všetky do rohov našich obydlí a tam zvyčajne pavúci tkajú pavučiny a v tých pavučinách sa to vlastne všetko zachytí.
Okay, so
Deň Lucie je práve obdobím a tá najtemnejšia noc je obdobím, kedy sa toho všetkého môžeme ľahko zbaviť, upratať a začína sa vlastne obdobie príchodu nového slnka. Takže zatiaľ toľko.
Výborne, teraz uvidíme, ako to zvládnem. So to talk of Christmas and winter solstice, we have to backtrack a little bit and talk about the period of witching days, which we mentioned briefly during our previous event. This is more or less consistent with Christian Advent, so it's that 1 month approximately to Christmas, which was believed in the pre-Christian past to strengthen the power of dark deities because it's so dark outside. So it's physical darkness, and that translated into growing power of these gods and goddesses. Then later on, when Christianity arrived, it added different element to it, and these practices were covered by saint feast days. So we have several of these days. Today, they are marked by feast days. In the past, they were called something else. Certain practices and rituals take place on these days, and this time, the period of witching days, escalates with Santa Lucia's Day on December the 13th. So we had that last week. Because that's kind of the peak of the period of that dark time of year, because around this time we also have a new moon. So the night, so one night around this period was believed to be the darkest night of the year, the thickest night of the year. Later on, that became centered all on that December 13th and Santa Lucia's Day. What's important is that it's the darkest night of the year, and this time is also conspicuous to clearing, cleansing, detoxing ourselves, our dwellings, our energies, so to speak.
Our homes.
Yeah. So on Santa Lucia's Day in Slovakia, we see these processions of girls dressed in white. We call them Lucias or Ludzki. They carry a goose feather and they visit houses and they sweep them out sort of symbolically and ceremoniously, focusing especially on the corners, because as Peter Weleslaw said, this is what was believed that sort of the negative energy, or whatever you want to call it, the memories, the emotions, all of that is stored in the corners where spiders are weaving their webs. So that needed to be cleansed before we could move into the second part before we could move to winter solstice. So this was all about cleansing and about protection from these gods and goddesses, from these dark deities. That was the period of time from the beginning of the witching days to Santa Lucia's Day, when it all escalates, when we're supposed to cleanse and prepare. And then the kind of focus shifts into something else.
Mm-hmm. Dobre, to som chcel, preto som to tak rýchlo, lebo som to chcel rýchlo skrátiť, aby sme sa dostali ďalej. Vlastne tu sa dostávame k obradom slnovratným. Za mladých čias som s priateľmi zapálil oheň na obradných miestach niekde uprostred lesa a čakali sme spolu v zime pri ohni na východ slnka. tak nejako mohol vyzerať aj obrad v Svetoháji. Vlastne čakalo sa, zapálil sa oheň a čakalo sa a prikladalo sa do ohňa a čakalo sa na zrod nového slnka, ktorý zvyčajne bol ohlásený praskaním bičov, trúbením na trúby, jednoducho robením veľkého hurhaja, a čo označovalo príchod zrod nového slnka. To bol taký základný rituál a po ňom vlastne nasledovala oslava. Dnes to máme trošičku ináč, ale nechám to povedať najprv.
So after Santa Lucia's, the rituals and ceremonies focused on the rituals of the end and inviting new beginning and securing favorable and new start to another year. As Peter Weleslaw was saying, as a younger man, he's together with his friends in certain places in forests, and they would light a fire. And this is probably how our ancestors did it in the past too. So at night of winter solstice, people would gather, whether in forests, in nature, or in those special sacred groves or worship places. They would light a fire and they would watch that fire the entire night. It could not go out, so it had to be maintained. And they were waiting for the rebirth of the sun, for the arrival of the sun, for the sunrise the next morning.
Dnes už aj ja si nastavím len budík. Idem zadom do svojho svetohája a privítam slnko. Takže to je ten základný rituál. A väčšina ostatných rituálov, ktoré sprevádzali tento sviatok, sú presunuté kresťanstvom o nejaké 4 dní na štedrý večer. Štedrý večer v podstate v predkresťanskom období vlastne mohol byť rovnako čakaním na vlastne oslavou a čakaním pri stole s priateľmi, s rodinou a čakaním na zrod toho slnka.
So,
podobne.
Môžem vám do toho vstúpiť, aby som zabula. So this the ritual that we just described, lighting sacred fire and watching it during the night and waiting for the sunrise, that's the basic core ritual. Weleslaw said he's getting lazy, he's not doing it anymore. So he sets his alarm in the morning and only welcomes the sun as it rises. But anyway, so this would have been the focus, the central point of the festivities. But later on, when Christianity arrived, this was moved by a few days. So from December 24th to December 21st to December 24th. So December 24th, Christmas Eve, or Štedrý večer, Štedrý deň, the generous day, as we call it in Slovakia, is an equivalent of those winter solstice celebration. Because on winter solstice, people were waiting for the arrival of the sun. And so on 24th of December, Christmas Eve, we also celebrate as we await the birth, the arrival of baby Jesus. So again, that's another parallel. That's how close those two traditions are.
Presne tak. I'm not lazy, just I built my own holy place, so it's a little bit easier. OK, takže poďme ďalej. Vlastne to čakanie je sprevádzané s oslavou jedlom. Táto oslava, podobne ako u Rímanov, tak aj u Slovanov, vlastne trvala niekoľko dní, tak ako v podstate teraz sviatky Vianoc trvajú tiež tou večerou 24., kedy sa v podstate čaká na zrod Krista, ako bolo povedané, a potom následne pokračujú ďalšie jedlá, ďalšia oslava, a rovnako ako v dnešných dňoch aj v minulosti tieto dni už potom boli spojené s prichádzaním obradníkov alebo takých obradných obchôdzok, ktoré v podstate sa už začínajú niekedy pred Luciou, kde tie obchôdzky predtým boli znamerané na vinčovanie ochrany, kdežto po zrode slnka, nového slnka, sú tieto obchôdzky opätovné, ale už s vinčovaním nového a so želaním nového zrodu, nového obrodenia, nového vítania slnka, nových vecí a v podstate ako keby taká predzvesť toho, že čo chvíľa znovu príde jar a znovu bude dobré.
So as today, as in the past, on a winter solstice or today on Christmas, people would gather and they would celebrate as they awaited the arrival of the sun or of the Son of God. And the celebrations would last a few days back then and today. So we start with Christmas Eve, and then the celebrations continue for 2 more days, or even beyond that, we could say into New Year's. In the past and today, this period of year is also connected with, well, now we would call it caroling and carolers, but these would become processions of people who would carry out certain ceremonies. And before Santa Lucia's Day, these would be dedicated to protection, but after that, and around winter solstice, and today around Christmas, it's all about welcoming the new, starting a new cycle, welcoming that baby or that son. It's all about new beginnings, new things flowing into life. This is time that's filled with hope, because we can already see the light at the end of the dark tunnel. We can already kind of sense, or we get closer to spring, when things and life becomes good again. Sun shines, food grows outside, and the most challenging time of year is over.
A v podstate celé toto obdobie až do 3 kráľov, čo je niekedy 6. 10. decembra, je obdobím smrti, znovuzrodenia a začiatkom niečoho nového, čiže ako keby nového roku. Okrem toho vlastne je toto obdobie aj symbolicky obdobím oslavy samotného vzniku celého všeho míra, kedy samotného veľkého tresku, kedy vznikol celý všehomír, všetky svety a kedy to všetko vlastne začalo. Čiže oslavou Boha roda.
So this period is all about endings and beginnings. It's about death and rebirth, the arrival of the sun, of light again. By the extension of it, we could say the beginning of a new year, as we celebrate it today, and that's the time for Christmas or winter solstice until January the 6th. So it's the Three Kings holiday in Christian tradition. And so it revolves, the rituals, the ceremonies, the celebration revolves around those core themes, so death and rebirth. But part of celebrating this season was also kind of honoring and celebrating the creation of all. So whether you want to call it universe, Weleslaw calls it Všehomír, because that encompasses everything that has ever been created in that Big Bang. So winter solstice, Christmas celebrations are also about this, and ultimately about honoring and celebrating God, Rod, who is the primordial God of the Slavs.
Dobre, čiže v rámci tohto cyklu alebo uzatvárania starého cyklu, vznikania nového, bolo žiaduce, aby celá domácnosť bola uprataná, aby bolo dostatok poživne nielen pre ľudí, ale aj pre dobytok, pre zvieratá. Musel byť vyumývaný riad, všetko popraté, vyžehlené, pripravené, čisté. V tomto období alebo v období slnovratu boli zakázané pracovať v zásade, ale práve boli povolené zabíjačky a práve tieto očistné veci, upratovania a podobné záležitosti. Zametalo sa napríklad od dverí smerom dnu do domu, aby sa nevymietlo šťastie. Je tam strašne veľa v tomto období, veľmi veľa rôznych maličkých rituálov, ktoré si človek v dnešnej dobe už ani neuvažuje o nich, ale môže si ich vytvoriť opätovne sám a môže si obohatiť svoj život práve aj vytvorením nových starých rituálov.
So when cycles are ending and new ones are beginning, this is the time to prepare. And our ancestors dedicated time to preparing not just themselves, but also their houses and their families for the arrival of winter solstice. So everything should have been cleaned, washed, ironed, swept, polished. There should be enough wood and enough food in the house for everyone. The livestock should have been taken care of and looked after. And this season is filled with many, many small rituals, as Weleslaw said, that we might not think of as rituals anymore, or might not be aware of them. But it's very easy to recreate them, to give the new meaning to the preparation works that we all do before Christmas. We all can clean at least a little bit and wash and prepare. So I can infuse this, what you do, with those ancient meaning, ancient rituals, and ancient purposes of this holiday. One little thing that you can do, as Weleslaw said, there was a special rule regarding how a house was to be swept. So you never sweep from inside out, so from inside to the front door, but the other way around, from the front door into the house, so as not to sweep good luck away by accident. This period was also governed by certain rules and restrictions regarding work. Work in general around winter solstice and these special days was discouraged. What people were to focus on was the preparation, the cleaning, and etc. that was allowed. But the other thing that people used to do was the traditional pig killing or pig slaughter around this time of year.
To pravda, že malo aj zabezpečiť dostatok jedla na práve tento sviatok. Na druhej strane tento sviatok často bol na ňo vyžadovaný ako keby taký pôst, čakanie na zrodenie toho slnka a až potom požívanie všetkých týchto jedál, pripravených jedál, ktoré sa v tomto období pred slnovratom mali robiť, ako piesť chlieb, variť mäso a pripravovať všetky veci práve pre tento obradný stôl, pre túto obradnú slávnosť.
So that pig killing also had a pragmatic function. It provided the meat and all the delicacies for the holidays. But there was a rule that the period before winter solstice, before Christmas, was dedicated to fasting. So people were to kind of restrain themselves so as to prepare for this special time of the year, so as to prepare for the special ceremonial dinner, for which they slaughter the pig and bake the bread and do all the preparations for in the run-up to the holiday.
čo je tiež potrebné povedať, slnovratný obrad, keď hovoríme o tom, že je to obrad umierania, smrti niečoho starého a prichádzania niečoho nového, v rámci božstiev vyznávaných našimi predkami, dá sa ho povedať, že tá slnovratná noc sa volala Vilia alebo Vigília. Je to vždycky v rámci všetkých sviatkov a nejakého obdobia, je to vždycky noc pred tým sviatkom. Verilo sa práve v posvetnosť toho, že nie len to, čo je potom, je posvetné, ale aj to, čo je predtým. A táto časť sviatku sa volala Vília alebo Vigília z latinského slova.
So this holiday is all about death and rebirth. And it's called Vigilia or Vilia in Slovak. It's taken from the Latin word, which means the eve of a holiday, because Slavs believe that not just what comes after winter solstice, that peak holiday of the year, is sacred, but also that which comes before. Hence the name for the holiday Vigilia, Vilia. So the night, the eve of, which is basically the equivalent of the Christmas Eve, which is the eve of the birth of baby Jesus.
OK, ale prečo o tom hovorím? Lebo práve tá noc pred zrodením nového slnka bola zasvetená pravdepodobne bohu temnoty, Diovi, pánovi noci, toto je Kaščej práve, ale nevadí, ktorý vlastne podľa legend jeho úlohou je, alebo jeho snahou je ukradnúť slnko, nedovoliť mu znovu zrodiť sa a tým nastoliť v podstate koniec sveta a koniec sveta. Potom sa už nič nekoná, potom je koniec. Ale to sa mu práve vďaka obradom, vďaka tomu, že sedíme, oslavujeme a čakáme na to nové slnko, prikladáme do pece, strážime ten oheň, strážime ten zrod toho slnka, rozímame, modlíme sa, tým udržiavame chod sveta, vykonávame obrady, udržiavame chod sveta a zabraňujeme temným bohom Diovi k tomu, aby vlastne sa mu podarilo to slnko ukradnúť. A zrodilo sa slnko nové.
So apologies, there is a wrong picture there, but you get the point. We are going to talk about
That's fine.
Dark deities. What we discussed before, the customs that surrounded the eve of that special holiday or Vigilia, Vilia are important. Because in Slavic native faith, the night before was sort of realm of one of the dark gods, Ni, who was said to want to steal away the sun and prevent it from being born. And if the sun isn't born, then in effect ends the world. That's the end of everything. And therefore, it was important to carry out these rituals and ceremonies on that night in order to make sure that the world kept going. Those rituals and ceremonies, they oversaw the functioning of the world, the movement, so that Ni would not steal away the sun. Hence, watching that fire, making sure that it's fed and kept throughout the night, that it doesn't go out, so that physical light is there. Ni doesn't, his darkness doesn't prevail. We are keeping it in check with the fire. Doing that while contemplating, praying, meditating, it's all part of these important ceremonies and the importance of Vilia, or the eve of the special holiday, so the new beginning.
Práve symbolom nového začiatku je Božič koliada, z toho koliada a toto božstvo je vlastne ako keby jedným z telení Boha Slnka a ako syn bohyne Lady a Svaroga toto novorodeniatko symbolizuje vlastne práve nové slnko, nový zrod, víťazstvo svetla nad temnotou, dobra nad zlom, znovu zrodenia a vlastne z víťazstva života nad smrťou, víťazstva koliadu nad morenou, alebo dážboga nad.
So the new beginning or the arrival of sun is embodied in this baby deity, Koleda is the son of goddess Lada and god Svarog, and kind of one of the embodiments of the sun deity, Dashbog. And it's this baby that symbolizes that new beginning, that new sun, the victory of life over death, of light over darkness.
No a symbolom tohto Božiča koliadu zvyčajne mohla to byť soška novorodeniatka bábätka, ale zachovalo sa taká tradícia v podstate vnášania do domu posvätného polena, ktoré sa nazývalo badík. A to posvätné poleno sa obradne natrelo medom, obsypalo makom, orechmi, pri ňom sa trochu porozímalo nad tým, čo bolo, čo by sme chceli, a takéto poleno bolo vnesené, zvyčajne práve koledníkmi, ako keby vnesené do domácnosti, kde potom doma v peci bolo spálené ako obeť a vyslanie všetkých tých želaní k bohom a v podstate taký rituál. Kým to preložíte, tak ja som hoci zimný slnovrat ešte len bude a aj Vianoce ešte len budú, ja som už vykonal prípravu takého badíka a v podstate teraz vám ho ukážem. Trošku potom privrieme oči všetci spoločne, porozímame sekundu, dve a ja ho potom vložím do svojej pece a v podstate aj za vás všetkých tento rituál vykoná.
So we are going to do something special in just a minute, but before we get there, let me translate and convey what Weleslaw was talking about. So a symbol of this baby deity, Koliada, was either a statuette of a baby, but also was a special blessed log, and it's a tradition that has survived until today. So a special blessed log is brought into a family as the symbol of this new beginning, the new sun. It's sort of further cured and blessed with honey, poppy seeds, and nuts. So that's all rubbed into it to increase its specialness. And that's then placed onto the fire, and it's over this embodiment of Koliada that people gather to contemplate, to think about what they want to welcome in their life. And Weleslaw prepared this special blessed log called Badik for us. So it's all ready. And he would like to ask us to now, just for a few seconds, to go silent, go within and ponder this theme of ends and beginnings, ponder the year gone by and what it is that we want to start the new year with. And then he will ceremonially place that log on fire, even though winter solstice and Christmas is just to come, we will do this, a little bit in advance. Because as he said, it doesn't matter when you do it, it's important that you do it, and it's a special power when we do it all together, so we get to be part of this ritual.
Takže nech pochválené sú všetky bytosti, ktoré nám pomohli zabezpečiť všetko živobytie pre nás a naše rodiny. Nech ďakujeme našim Bohom a našim predkom, že sa o nás starali, a dúfame a veríme, že nám budú aj v ďalšom novom roku nápomocní a pripravia nám všetkého dostatok. Tak, nech sa tak stane.
So Weleslaw was saying a prayer, blessed be all the beings that bring us all that we need, that all our families need, and we honor our ancestors, thanks to whom we are here, and we ask them for their protection and guidance in the year to come.
Sometimes I do forget that she was a second. A second,
Weleslaw, ja som vás stišila omylom, môžete sa znova odmute. Ďakujem. Ďakujem.
So, and now we can continue. Takže, takéhoto badíka prinášali niekedy dve postavy odeté bielom. Tieto postavy mohli symbolizovať šťastie, nešťastie, kedy hospodár si mal prevzať toho badíka od nich, prípadne vykonať ten rituál a ako keby si vybrať jednu z nich, čím si vyberal pre svoj budúci rok práve šťastie alebo nešťastie. Totižto následné obdobie bolo spojené, pravda, že aj s veštením nasledujúceho obdobia.
So this sacred piece of wood or badik was brought in, sometimes by two persons covered in white, one of them symbolizing good luck and fortune, the other one being a symbol of misfortune. And the head of the family, so the man of the house, was to choose. He didn't know who was who, so he was to choose one of these figures, and in that he was choosing either fortune or misfortune for his family. This was a part of fortune-telling customs and rituals that took place around this time of year. So as we are stepping into the new cycle, people want to, see into the future and predict how it would be or make sure that it would be good. This is something that is still part of Christmas traditions in Slovakia today, the fortune telling.
Takže po zrode slnka prvý deň, a ja to robím aj v rodine, od dávna to robíme, prvý deň po štedrej večeri, ráno sa obradne umývame, v miske alebo v umývadle s peniazmi, s mincami, čo nám má priniesť okrem vodou, voda, pravda, že šťastie, ale aj nám to má zabezpečiť bohatstvo a dostatok. To je taký prvý rituál dňa.
So the first ritual of the day after, so the day after the arrival of the sun or light, Weleslaw does it now so the day after Christmas Eve, is to gather up with family and wash with water into which coins are placed. in order to invite prosperity and abundance and goodness into the family, so to influence and shape the future ahead.
Následným obradom pravdepodobne zvyčajne bolo vyčistenie pece, ohniska a založenie nového ohňa. Vyslovene uhasenie ohňa starého, alebo dosť často sa nechávalo dohorieť. Vlastne prikladalo sa až dokedy sa zrodilo nové slnko, alebo v svetoháji sa prikladalo do ohňa do obdobia, do času, kedy vyšlo nové slnko a potom sa vyslovene prestalo prikladať na ohnisko alebo do ohňa a nechalo sa ten oheň uhasnúť. Po jeho uhasnutí sa toto ohnisko vyčistilo a zapálil sa oheň nový obradným spôsobom, kresaním a to je zase nadlho, to možno niekedy na budúce.
So the next ritual that would take place would be sweeping fireplaces, so removing the ashes of the old fire, because traditionally that sacred fire that would be burning on the night of winter solstice and that would be fed and looked after, so it had to last until the sunrise. After the sun rose, that people stop feeding it with more wood, so the fire would die, the fire would end. So that would be a ceremonial end of a cycle. They would clean the fireplace or, where the fire was, and they would start a new fire as the symbol of the new beginning. And this was surrounded by a whole range of other little customs and rituals. So it would be started and prepared in a certain way to observe the tradition.
Tento prvý deň bol plný obradov. Napríklad vhádzovali sa do studne kúsok jablka alebo jablko, cesnak, štípka soli, čo malo zabezpečiť po celý rok dobrú vodu. Mohlo to byť chodenie po sade so sekerou a vyhrážanie sa stromom, že ak neurodia, tak budú vyťaté. A mnoho rôznych obradov spojených s hospodárstvom, s prichádzajúcim vlastne novým obdobím. Pravda, že z toho posvätného stola, ešte ku ktorému sa pravda, že vrátime na chvíľočku, tak z neho všetky tie omrvinky sa odnášali dobytku, jedna vec. Druhá vec, obetovávali sa do toho nového založeného ohňa, vhádzovali sa do vetra pred dom a tak ďalej a tak ďalej.
So this first day is filled with rituals. We already mentioned one, the starting of the new fire. People would also throw garlic or apples, a bit of apples into wells in order to make sure that they would have enough drinking water in the year to come. Some would take an axe and take a walk in orchards, threatening the fruit trees there with that axe and with the death if they don't bear fruit in the next growing season. A čo bol ten posledný zvyk?
Bolo tam ešte vlastne omrvinky zo stola alebo zvyšky z toho obradného stola, že sa nosili za prvé, že sa to dalo do ohňa ako obetina, za druhé zvieratám, za tretie vyhadzovalo sa to pred dom ako do vetra a to som nedopovedal, lebo som si nechal, že neskôr, ale dobre. A v neposlednom rade sa tieto zvyšky nosili na roľu, na pôdu, kde sa obradne vlastne vracali Matke Zemi ako poďakovanie za minulosť a žiadosť o to, aby bola naďalej zem úrodná a aby vlastne nabehol ten nový cyklus.
So, and as to the food and the dinner, we'll return to that in a minute, but the day after festivities, nothing would be thrown out, not even breadcrumbs. In fact, the breadcrumbs would be gathered and they would be put into the new fire. or they would be given to farm animals, to livestock, or they would be tossed into fire, or taken out into the fields to ceremoniously offer them, or sacrifice them to the Mother Earth, to the soil, to make sure.
Nepovedal by som, keď môžem skočiť, nepovedal by som or, akože alebo, ale zároveň.
Okay.
Hej, že urobilo
So this
sa aj to,
not-
aj to, aj to, hej? Nie, že to, alebo to, alebo to.
So this could be the combination of these customs. You could do some of them, it wasn't about choosing just one. If you feel you want to do it now, or these days, you choose what resonates with you, choose however many you want. So the breadcrumbs or the remainder of the food of that special feast would be put into the soil in order to kind of safeguard its fertility and an abundant harvest next spring or summer and autumn.
Dosť silne skracujem medzi nami devčatami. Snažím sa strepať stále do tej hodiny, hej, takže aj kvôli tomu takto. Dobre. Dobre. Ako jedným z tiež veľmi dôležitých obradov tohto obdobia je, ako sme hovorili, tam bolo ako očistá, upratovanie predtým, ale v tie následujúce dni po slnovrate bol obrad očisty domova, alebo také ako keby znovu nabudenie celej rodiny, celej domácnosti. A to sa robilo práve, keď ste hodili to jablko a soľ do studne, tak ste nabrali z tej vody. Tá voda bola tým pádom posvetená a s tou vodou ste vysvetili, obišli dom a vykropili ho. Hej? Ďalej. Varili ste posvetnú večeru, na tie uhlíky ste zobrali bylinky posvetné a vydymili ste celý dom posvetnými, čiže vždycky to bolo ako keby očista a nabudenie toho nového.
So these days after winter solstice would also see rituals that were about sort of cleansing and also reinvigorating the household and the family. So they already mentioned apple thrown into well, so that water could be taken because it was now blessed, and you would sprinkle it around the house in order to cleanse it, in order to reinvigorate it, in order to prepare it for something new. On the ashes of the fire on which you prepared the solstice dinner, those could receive special blessed herbs. So you would smudge the house again, cleansing it, but also invigorating it, so returning life into it. And that was important, actually key part of the post-solstice ceremonies.
Potom tam bolo napríklad obradné obsypávanie domova, ale zároveň aj stájne, vlastne celého toho ako keby obydlia mákom a práve tou poživňou z toho posvetného stola. A vlastne vidíme tu stále ten princíp toho, že je tam aj oheň, aj voda, aj vzduch, aj zem, čo by práve skrz to jedlo. Hej. Čiže ako keby dnes by sme v minulosti to tak určite vnímané nebolo, ale keď si to tak teraz na to pozrieme sa, tak tam vidíme, že vlastne prirodzene ľudia vtedy zachovávali nejaké živly, hoci o nich neuvažovali takým spôsobom, ako dnes my hovoríme o energiách, živloch a tak ďalej, ale oni tým žili. Pre nich to bola normálna vec. Neuvažovali nad tým, ale žili to. My nad veľa vecami uvažujeme, ale nežijeme.
So another custom was pouring poppy seeds around the house or on the house itself, including all the outhouses and the stables and places where animals lived, again, to bless it, to invite in prosperity. And in this way, our ancestors incorporated all the elements. There was the earth in the form of the food, fire, water, air. And Weleslaw says they were probably not thinking about, okay, we have to incorporate all those because that makes a whole. They were doing it naturally. It was their life. They lived all those principles. So they did it as it came to them. It came to them naturally. It was like breathing to them, as opposed to for us often we overthink these principles and these rituals. So they did, as opposed to thinking. They were doing, not thinking. And he said that today we're thinking too much and not doing enough, or we're thinking about it but not doing it.
Určite, v podstate blížime sa k záveru, ale určite každého ešte by to zaujímalo, ako tá večera mohla zhruba prebiehať a o čo tam vlastne, ako by sme si ju mohli urobiť dnes. V podstate niekedy v jeseni, keď sa zožala úrada, tak sa plietol taký obradný veniec. Ten sa zvyčajne v čase tejto štedrej večere zavesil nad stôl alebo niekde blízko posvetného miesta. To sú dnes tie obradné vence, alebo tie vence, kde dávame 4 sviečky a tak ďalej a tak ďalej. Stále je to ten veniec, len v podstate ani nevieme, odkiaľ pochádza. Ale je to v podstate veniec, ktorý znázorňuje úrodu, ktorú sme dostali.
So a few final remarks about the winter solstice dinner. Again, we have to backtrack a little bit into the time of harvest. So in autumn, when harvest was taken from the fields, people would take a cereal, the rye or wheat, whatever, and they would make it into a wreath. This was a ceremonial wreath, and it would be kept, and that would be used and hung above a Christmas dinner table. And effectively, the Advent wreath that we make in Europe, and certainly in Central Europe, at the beginning of Advent, and we light those 4 candles on 4 Advent Sundays, that's a part, or that comes from that tradition of those wreaths made from wheat. They were considered biological objects.
Potom bola tradícia vnášania poľnohospodárskeho náradia, pomaly plúh, sekera, všetko možné sa poznášalo pod stôl a potom nohy stola sa opásali reťazou. Prečo? V podstate ten čas, ten stôl, na ktorom sa robila štedrá večera, alebo keď sa večeralo, alebo čakalo na to slnko, zrod slnka, sa stáva obradným posvetným miestom. A všetko, čo je pod ním, na ňom, je posvetené, je požehnané a získava, povedzme, čarodejnú moc. A keďže poľnohospodár chcel, aby sa mu sekera neotupila, plúh dobre oral, tak všetko, čo pre svoj život potreboval, niesli po ten stôl. A tým, že ho opásali reťazou, to malo znamenať, povedzme, tú súdržnosť rodiny. A vlastne tým, že sa začalo klásť to posvetné jedlo na stôl, sa všetko toto, čo bolo na stole, pod stolom, stávalo svätým a posvetilo sa.
So the table on which solstice dinner was laid, or Christmas dinner was laid, was considered sacred. So everything above it, around it, underneath it, or on it became sacred too, which is why people used to bring their work equipment or everything that they needed for life and put it underneath the table. So it could be axes, plows, whatever was necessary for the family, to put it underneath it, so that it would do good work, so that the axe would stay sharp, and so on and so forth. So equipment under the table, chain would be wrapped around the legs of the table in order to ensure togetherness of the family. And once the food was laid on the table, that became sacred too. It was all this was believed to, have special properties, or you can even say magic, just by being in proximity of that sacred ceremonial space.
Keďže táto večera, toto čakanie bolo v podstate aj ako keby obradným novým rokom, tak aj tie obrady boli spojené s tým prechodom do niečoho nového. A prebral sa, ťažko povedať, že či sa prebral, ale v podstate do dnešných dní prechádza taký krásny symbolický sviatok, ktorý pôvod má určite znovu pri žatve, kedy sa piekol veľký koláč a gazda sa, keď sa všetci pomodlili, zobral ten koláč a ukázal ich ho pred sebou a spýtal sa rodiny: vidíte ma cez ten koláč? No a tí mu odpovedali, že áno. No a tak on im na to odpovedal: tak aby budúci rok bol taký veľký, aby ste ma cez neho nevideli.
So this time was all about transitions as well. So we're transitioning into the new year or a new cycle. So it's all part of the festivities. And one custom that survived until today is baking a special cake. It's probably linked to all the harvest rituals of autumn. So this would be a large cake that the head of the family, the man, would hold in front of himself. So here I am, the cake would be here. And he would ask the family members whether they could see him. They would respond yes. So his response would be, so may harvest next year be so abundant that this cake will be so large you won't see me behind it next year. So it's all about kind of trying to shape and invite in all the goodness in the new year as we are transitioning into the new year, into the new cycle.
Potom, povedzme, po rozjímaní, vyslovení žiadosti duchu, väčšinou pravdepodobne, aspoň ja to tak robím, následovalo vysypanie hrstí maku, zrna, obilia, niečoho do kútov. Ja to robím ako máme stôl, tak mám tam také obradné miesto, taký oltár a ja vlastne tam vhodím záhrst máku, čo je práve symbol toho, že volám svojich predkov, aby sa pridali k hodovaniu a čakaniu na zrod nového slnka, kedy nám pomáhajú aj predkovia prečkať tú strašnú temnú noc a vlastne hodovali s nami a zvyčajne sa povie dedo a babo, poďte s nami jesť. Dedo a babo sa myslí predkovia naši, poďte s nami jesť. A vtedy sa vlastne sadá. V dnešnej dobe tam ešte v rámci toho, že často sú moji rodičia na návšteve, tak ešte je tam aj kresťanský otčenáš kľudne, nejaká tá modlitba, rozjímanie, ale v zásade potom sa sadá za stôl a začína sa jesť.
So before the actual dinner starts, there is a moment of prayer, contemplation, setting intentions, saying your wishes for the season to come. In Weleslaw family, this may be also accompanied by Christian elements, so the Lord's Prayer and so on and so forth. And after that, he and our ancestor will throw a handful of poppy seeds or grains or something like that, something small, into a corner of the room, thereby inviting the souls of the ancestors to come and join them as they wait during that longest night of the year for the arrival of the new sun. So, so this is part of the ancestral cult too. And holidays.
Potom v rámci toho sviatočného stola bolo niekoľko jedál. V šírom svete má každý niečo iné. My máme tiež nejakých 13 jedál, keď začneme tým cestnakom a oplátkou a medom, až po posledné jablko, ktoré sa krája a pozerá sa, či tam bude hviezda. V rámci tejto večere vlastne, ako som už hovoril, všetky následné veci boli spojené s veštením a práve to jablko je tiež spojené s veštbou, či tá rodina bude OK a tak ďalej.
There would be numerous dishes on the table. The Weleslaw serves 13 courses. This includes wafers that we serve in Slovakia on Christmas Eve with garlic. So it would be the beginning, and the end would be an apple that's cut in half to predict whether you will be happy, healthy, and prosperous in the year to come. And all these customs to do with food, the rituals around them, have to do with kind of peeking into the future or ensuring good health and prosperity in the new cycle, so in the new year.
Zvyčajne po zrode nového slnka sa išlo do svetohája odovzdať nejaké obetiny, rozímať v kruhu celej obce, celej občiny, tak ako to robíme v podstate v rámci kresťanského zvyku. Ide sa do kostola, kde sa všetci zídu. S tým sú spojené, pravda, že veštby, rozímania, ďakovania toho, čo sme dostali a prosby toho, čo by sme si želali.
So after the dinner, people would go into the sacred groves to pray and contemplate. So as we today go into the church to all be there together, a part of that is giving thanks for the year gone by and asking for fortune, good health, and everything that we want to have in our lives next year. And again, it was sort of mingled with fortune telling practices and customs.
Dobre, a poslednú takú podstatnú vec, ku ktorej sa chcem dostať v rámci tých koledníkov. Koledníci prinášajú v tomto období prúty, ktoré v podstate, alebo zelené prúty, tak sa to hovorí v legendách, že to mali byť zelené prúty. Neviem teraz, že či to boli vrbové, ktoré tým, že boli vo vnútri, tak začali púčať. Jednoducho sú to prúty, ktorými následne sa na jar vyháňal statok z maštalí na pašu, čiže to boli také obradné korbáče, povedzme, obradné prúty. Hej. Taký symbol toho príchodu jary v podstate je pravdepodobné, že keď nemám to osobne odskúšané, takže neviem povedať, že či taký prúd, keď dáte na Vianoce do vody, či tak za 12 dní vám začne, za mesiac vám začne vlastne púčať. Hej. U nás v našom regióne vlastne práve možno aj tento prúd, aj tento zvyk sa transformoval práve do vianočného stromčeka.
So part of these festivities were, in the past, that wouldn't be carolers coming along, but it would be different kinds of processions, and these people who are coming into your house to bring you blessings and good wishes would bring along with them special sort of sacred whips that then would be used in the spring to help the livestock out into the pastures. So that was considered, that was the symbol of a new beginning of that spring, the new cycle. Also, this could be taken as an embodiment or as a predecessor of the Christmas tree that we have today. So we no longer have the whips, but we have the Christmas tree in place of that.
Hoci vieme, že ten vianočný stromček pochádza z nemeckého regiónu a v podstate bohatých mešťanských rodín, myslím 17. a 18. storočia. Je to veľmi nový zvyk. V podstate aj na Slovensku bol veľmi dlho ťažko prijímaný, nakoniec stradičnil celosvetovo. Ale práve s týmto obdobím, aby sme si to zhrnuli, vlastne čakalo sa na zrodenie slnka, po zrodení slnka sa trúbilo na rohy, praskalo bičom, vykonávalo sa množstvo rituálov, následne sa išlo do svetohája, tam sa ľudia stretali a obdarúvavali sa. Napríklad to obdarúvavanie je spojené už aj v rámci rímskych sviatkov, Saturnálií, ale taktiež je to vlastne obdarúvavanie koledníkov, ktorí prichádzajú a vinčujú nám niečo dobré, tak na oplátku my im niečo dáme za to, že nám niečo želali. A celý tento rituál obdarovávania sa v podstate transformoval do dnešných megalomanských zvyklostí obdarúvania sa darčekmi pod vianočný stromček. Ale všetko je v poriadku, lebo v podstate je to len transformácia nejakých čarodejných úkonov, ktoré naši predkovia vykonávali. My ich vykonávame trošku po svojom ináč, ale stále je to OK.
So quick remark on the note of a Christmas tree. That's a modern tradition, goes back to Germany, but I know all things are connected, so we can draw the links between the Christmas tree and those special Christmas whips. But moving on to the tradition of giving gifts, that's also rooted in this era and these traditions, because when the carolers came in, or the well-wishers came in, you would reward them with a little something for their well wishes, for their good wishes, and for those whips. So that is also part of the Roman celebration of Saturnalia that we mentioned at the very beginning. But over time, that transformed into today's custom of giving each other gifts at Christmas. So something that we altered and adapted, and that's still alive in different form and practice today. Myslím, ešte máme niečo, alebo už môžeme sa presunúť.
V podstate to idem len ukončiť. Takže v každom prípade všetkým želám požehnané sviatky, počínajúc týmto obdobím, slnovratom, následne Vianocami. Nech celé toto obdobie až do 10. januára je pre vás obdobím možností, kedy môžete zapáliť nové svetlo. Nech je to vašim novým začiatkom, vašim obrodením, tak ako nás všetkých. Takže vám želám veľa svetla vo vašich mysliach a srdciach.
So to end this presentation part, after which follows a quick Q&A, Weleslaw would like to wish you all blessed holidays from now on until the January the 10th or whatever. So celebrate the winter solstice and Christmas and New Year's. May this be an opportunity for you to light a new fire, to start something new and fresh. And he wishes you to have a lot of light in your life, in your heart, in your mind, and in your soul. So thank you so much. Ďakujem veľmi pekne, Weleslaw. Fascinujúce, úžasné, fascinating as per usual. And we didn't fit into an hour, I know, but now is the opportunity for all of you to ask questions. So if you have a question, please go ahead, unmute yourselves and ask. Or if there is anything on the chat, we will try to answer that too. So anyone brave enough to have a question, to ask a question live?
Yes.
Yes, wonderful. Just Mina.
Hi.
Hello.
My question is,
dark. Sorry about that. My question is, what do you use after the solstice to smudge the home?
As I said, smudge,
So
dobre tomu rozumiem,
Mhm.
dobre tomu rozumiem, že čo používam na očistenie domácnosti?
Na to vydymovanie špecificky. Aké bylinky?
Aké bylinky?
Alebo čo používate na to vyčisťovanie dymom?
OK. That's secret. But it's šalvia. Neviem, ako sa povie šalvia.
Sage?
To je základná taká zložka tých byliniek. Potom to môže byť žihľava.
It could also be nettle.
Okay.
Ale v podstate ja mám veľmi rád kadidlo, takže ja mám vôňu kadidla, čiže nemusí to byť vyslovene nejaká čarovná bylinka, môže to byť aj klasické kadidlo, ale tá šalvia a žihľava základ.
So sage and nettle are kind of the base herbs, the base ingredients of the smudging blends, but it doesn't have to be herbal. Weleslaw himself likes myrrh and incense, so it could be that as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Your time is out for it. Okay. Anybody else has a question? This is
Yes, please.
Yes.
Cynthia, I would like to know what is in the special bread that the head of the house is holding. What is special about that bread?
Že čo je špeciálne v tom koláči, za ktorý sa schováva gazda, či ho je vidno? Či sa do neho dáva niečo špeciálne?
Fú, no tentokrát si netrúfnem to po anglicky. V podstate je to taký, neviem, chcelo by to popísať ako taký moravský koláč, ktorý je tak do kríža predelený a napríklad jednu časť má makovú, jednu tvarohovú, jednu syr, hej, ale v zásade ten chlieb, ten koláč často závisí od toho, že čo máte. Ak dokážete upiecť len kváskový chleba alebo kúpiť kváskový chleba, tak je to kváskový chleba, obyčajný chleba. Môže to byť sladké pečivo, môže to byť koláč, volá sa to štedrák niekde, alebo moravský koláč, hej, ale vo väčšom prevedení. Neviem, či to ľudia poznajú, ale v podstate stále sa jedná o okrúhly akýkoľvek chlieb, akýkoľvek koláč.
So basically it depends on what you have at home. So what you can use to bake it with, it's a round shape cake or bread, could be sweet or savory. Sort of the classic, I don't know whether you're familiar with it, but we have this round cake. It's called the Moravian cake. It's like round, it's divided into quarters and each quarter has a different topping. So it would be something like that. But as Weleslaw said, if all you can make is bread, then it's bread. You know, it's not a big deal. It's more of the intention and not the exact procedure that counts.
Tak ako som povedal predtým, nie je podstatné, ako až čím obrad vykonáme. Dôležité je, aby obrad bol vykonaný.
So it doesn't matter so much how you do the ritual and what with, but that you do it in your own way. So it's freedom.
With mind and heart. That is important for all rituals. Doesn't matter what you will wear, if you will have costume from 10th century or you will be in Gore-Tex. Doesn't matter what you will do and how, but most important for circulation of whole world is to do it, these rituals, and do it with free mind and heart. That's all what is counting.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Cynthia. So whatever, just bake something. Thank you. Any more? Is there anybody else? Okay, I see some questions in the chat.
Yeah, we have a good question actually here by Bob Benko. So he asked, were there any Druids in Slovakia as in Great Britain?
Boli na Slovensku druidi, tak ako v Veľkej Británii alebo nejaký ekvivalent.
Tak je pravdepodobné, že áno, lebo v podstate pred príchodom Slovanov tu máme doložených Keltov a v rámci keltskej kultúry druidi sú v rámci Keltov. To, či už Slovania Keltov vytlačili alebo sa s nimi zmixovali, to už ťažko povedať. Pravdu povediac, ja osobne sa poznám alebo s druidmi v Anglicku, lebo vlastne bol som tam na jednom z prvých, lebo Stonehenge bol jeden čas dlho zatvorený a v podstate až v 2005 alebo 2003 boli znovu povolené obrady a tam prišla spústa ľudí, nejakých 30 000 ľudí a bolo tam kopu druidov tiež a práve tam som sa s nimi spoznal, ale áno, určite na Slovensku boli, ale pre nás v zásade to už nemá nejako veľmi význam.
So, given that we do know of Celtic presence on the territory of Slovakia prior to the arrival of Slavs, it's very possible and likely that there were Druids here as part of the culture, as part of their tradition. We can't really tell what happened afterwards, whether the Slavs pushed the Celts out or whether the two cultures sort of, connected and merged. We didn't really know. But as Weleslaw was saying, from his perspective, that it doesn't matter so much to know for sure whether they were here or not.
It just seemed like they had another, there are a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Of course, there's a lot of similarities across the indigenous faiths with the different tribes in Europe, whether it's the Germanic one or the Nordic one or the Druidic one.
Yeah, and it's lots of similarities with even Aztecs, with even Red Indians, with Indian culture, because all of it, it's kind of way of spirituality, and in whole world we can find some similarities.
Right.
So if Druids, fine. Greeks, fine. That's fine. Most important is to learn and to take it from everyone, best from it, and to be best, better, and continue in our lives.
So what Weleslaw means is to take away the best practices with those faiths or spiritual practices that resonate with you to eventually make you a better person. So that's the whole point, is that evolution, so that you become better, closer, purer to the divine, and you choose whatever resonates with you. But
I think our priests of Rodna Viera, 100 from 10th century, they did it the same thing when they met some druids and they saw that they do something right. They try to do it themselves. If they met some Romance priests, they learn each other, and it's not these meetings is not only on musím to povedať nejako po slovensky, stretnutia medzi duchovnými vodcami nemuseli byť vždycky na fyzickej bázi. Čiže duchovní vodcovia aj našich prapredkov, čiže šamani a naši žréci, ktorí vykonávali tie obrady, oni sa dokázali stretať a spoznávať a učiť sa aj od ľudí vzdialených na opačnej strane sveta. A nie len to, dokázali sa učiť od bohov, dokázali sa učiť a prijímať veci od bohov, ľudí na opačnej strane sveta, ale aj v inom čase. Čiže ten duchovný žrec mal o mnoho väčšiu perspektívu. A preto ja vravím, že nie je podstatné, či tu boli Kelti, neboli Kelti, či daný rituál je rímsky, kresťanský, židovský, lebo v podstate ide o to byť lepším človekom.
I can actually try to translate this one. So Weleslaw was saying that there was a certain knowledge transfer that occurred when different spiritual leaders or the priest class met of the different tribes that were, let's say, physically within Europe. So they would observe each other and they would take on the best practices, they would share know-how, and the essence was that they would, when one tribe would see something good that the other tribe was doing, they would try to emulate it. However, this is where he gets more abstract, and he says that these knowledge transfers didn't just happen in the corporal reality, so person to person physically meeting, but it also happened in the, let's say, astral dimensions. So you would have spiritual leadership from the Slavic tribes, the priest class, the shamans, the sorcerers, that would be getting knowledge from other geolocations on the planet, whether it was in India or it was the Aztecs or it was in faraway China, but they would also be getting knowledge from nature, from the elements, from their gods, and from the different dimensions of the heavens. So when someone's consciousness is so expansive and open, it's not limited to just knowledge exchange of the mind or what they physically see, but they can go beyond that. And that is what spirituality is, I guess. When you
all
get
connected, so that's what we are. So you know, the details of it, who was where at what time, it's just a different way of looking at it. So once you take a look from this perspective, those other things are details, really.
Thank you,
Yes,
Doctor.
all these traditions come together, and the purpose of them all is to become a better person. So they naturally will share a lot. Their purpose is the same.
Prečo som aj k tomu trošku zacielil je, lebo v dnešnej dobe často sa stretáme, že všetko musí byť nejak slovanské a je to potom také skostnatené, hej? A pozeráme na to, že ja som Slovan a toto je kresťan, alebo toto je Žid, toto je moslim. V zásade, o čo ide, je byť len lepším človekom a je úplne jedno, čím sa cítime byť, či sme Slovania, aké rituály vykonávame. Podstatné je, prečo ich vykonávame. Vykonávame ich preto, aby sme udržali ten cyklus znovuzrodenia a zomierania sveta, udržiavali čím dlhšie svet sa točiaci a my, aby sme vlastne sa stávali lepšími. To je celé.
Susie, do you want to take that one too?
Yeah, sure. So I think the essence of Weleslav's work and the message he's trying to communicate, especially right now during the Q&A, is not to get caught up in the what and how and the dates and the specificities, but to look at the why we're doing these rituals, why our ancestors were doing these rituals, and to connect with that essence again, to become better people, to maintain harmony on the planet, to maintain harmony between societies and communities and nature. And that is the, I guess, the greater essence between all this spirituality. And he sees it personally in the Slavic native faith, where communities that practice it, they go very much like everywhere you see, go into the mind, and that they want to, get very isolationist and doing practices that are only purely Slav. And this is definitely 100% Slavic native faith, and this is Christian, so we're not going to do that. Or this is an external influence, this is from the Romans, this is from the Greeks. And he's saying, do not pay attention to that, but really take away the essence of what makes you a better person and what helps you better connect with the divine.
And to hold to word continue. Because if we stop doing this, bad gods or dark gods comes, steal our sun, and everything will end and goes to nowhere, to all will stop.
So essentially, if I'm understanding it correctly, we all have to do our piece to maintain peace and good on the planet. And if we don't, if we neglect our job, whether that's cleansing ourselves or being good people in society, etc., dark forces will take over.
So do those rituals now, we need them. Everyone, it's our homework.
Just not to scare anyone, but it's the same narrative of Christianity, when you look at the narrative, the dichotomy of God and the devil or Lucifer. So be good or else Lucifer takes over.
And it's very fulfilling to engage with the natural forces and the natural environment in whatever way you see fit. It's satisfying, and it's something where we can easily find purpose, which is something that many people are missing these days. So it's as Weleslaw was saying, it's not just about keeping the world turning, it's good for us too. So yes, thank you. That's beautiful philosophical moment. Do we have, I'll take one more question.
Actually, before we take one more question, there was a question earlier from Joanne. She asked us to share a little bit about our online course that we're offering called Slavic Mythology Decoded, which borrows heavily off of Weleslav's books. I did put the link in the chat. I'll do that once again, so you guys can just click on that. If you click on that, we do have a special 20% discount for all webinar attendees. I believe the code is Christmas if you put it in. And it's a really interesting holistic course that Gabrielle and I made actually while we were in two different geographies on the planet. I was in India during lockdown. She was in Egypt. So we were very influenced by the religions I was in terms of Hinduism, and Gabby with ancient Egypt, and seeing.
Which is what we just talked about during one of those questions.
Seeing polytheistic faiths and participating in these, for example, with me, Hindu rituals, we were able to triangulate and better understand the ways of the ancient Slavs, the many gods and goddesses they connected with, which can seem kind of obscure when you're coming from a monotheistic religion like Christianity, where there's one God and there's God's Son. It is a bit strange and a far stretch, but when you're in cultures where this is normal, or as in Gabby's case, when she was in Egypt, you see this iconography of the gods and goddesses everywhere at the ancient sites. It certainly normalizes these practices, and so that really comes through in this course, where we try to map the most important gods and goddesses and explain the deeper meanings behind some of the practices our ancestors did to connect with them. There's also recordings of 2 of the webinars we held with Weleslaw previously, so you'll be able to access hours of lectures on that as well as several or numerous audiovisual materials that help you to integrate the knowledge through the right brain, so through audiovisual interaction. It's a really, really good course. And as we said, there's a 20% discount for all webinar attendees. So that's that.
Yeah. So that's there for you to
And
explore. Once you enroll, everything is fully downloadable, so it's yours for forever. There is no expiration date on it, so you can go through it at your own pace in your own time. And while we're here, I would just like to also bring back, as we only had at the moment at the beginning. So these are the 3 books by Petr Weleslaw Kuzmishin. Unfortunately, they're available in Slovak. Only if you're Slovak or Czech speakers who understand Slovak. It's a wonderful source of material. It's written in a very accessible way, unlike many other books and publications out there. So really, it's one of the best sources of information, if not the best, that I found on the topic out there. So we're really excited that there is a new one. So it's about gods and goddesses. There is a book about these customs and rituals, and there is one about the other magical beings and the stories and fairy tales of the old Slavs. Hopefully next year we have many plans, also cooperating with Weleslaw, making this content accessible in English as well in one way or another. But before we do that, the course that Zuzana mentioned is there for you. That's based heavily on his work. So if you would like to do something now, that's a perfect start to the topic and to the theme. The links to all of this will be in the follow-up email that you will receive after this event, as well as contact details at Weleslaw if you would like to get in touch with him directly about anything. And now one more question. We'll take one more before signing off. So if anyone would like to take it?
Are the books in English?
No, they're in Slovak for now. Hopefully there will be an English language translation soon. And we are also hoping to work with Weleslaw in the production of a unique English-speaking book that shares his knowledge to a wider audience. So we'll keep you posted on that.
Thank you very much. Doctor, thank you.
Thank you.
So final question. Let's do a big one. Who's it gonna be? Take this home.
Problem with big questions is that answers on big questions is only yes or no. So
Perfect way to end.
What is the significance of poppy? Why is that so important?
If I just to repeat the question to make sure I caught it, the significance of poppies.
Poppies.
Correct.
Čo znamená mak?
Čo je mak? Taký dôležitý.
I think it's because it's so small, and from one little one could be thousands when grow it up. So maybe for this, maybe because could be sweet. Maybe because some of legend says that if you throw it poppy seeds on the floor and says that Baba Yaga can follow you only when all these poppy seeds will find out, which is not really possible. For this reason is kind of it's kind of ochranná vec.
So just to convey the end of it, so it's a protective, could also be a protective. The benefit that might be present in poppy seeds, at least in the beliefs of the old Slav, because there is a legend that when you are pursued by Baba Yaga, one of those troublesome characters in Slavic mythology, what can save you from her is throwing a handful of poppy seeds at her, and she can't really proceed and going after you before she picks up all these tiny little seeds, which is really impossible. So you are.
Ale v zásade v rámci rituálov to nemusí byť len mak. Môže to byť aj obilie, môže to byť aj múka, môže to byť kukurica. Môže to, hoci kukurica je z Ameriky, hej, ale v dnešnej dobe, dnešných rituálov pre mak nie je sám o sebe podstatný. To, čo celý čas vravím dnes. Mak nie je podstatný. Podstatné je vykonanie rituálu. Mak je len prostriedok. Ten mak môže byť nahradený kukuricou, môže byť nahradený pšenicou, môže byť nahradené soľou, lebo všetko toto pochádza zo zeme a vlastne tým hodením sa do zeme navracia a len toho musí byť veľa práve kvôli tomu ochrannej funkcii. Hej? Čiže asi tak.
Yeah, so what we've been repeating for the last half an hour, it's not, the poppy seed is just a tool, it's not an end. And the tool itself doesn't matter as much as doing the ritual, conducting the ritual. And as far as the rituals go, in those you can replace the poppy seeds with grains, with salt, with corn even. So something or anything that's really tiny and that there is a lot of it and that came from the earth, and in that ritual you return it to the earth, so you achieve the same purpose with it, whatever it is that you are using. So again, don't get caught up in details. For purposes of your own modern day rituals, just use something that there is a lot of, because in that hides that protective element of the ritual or of the ceremony.
But also, Slavs have a particular connection with poppies or poppy seeds. I mean, we use it in our cuisine, but it's something that at least my mind associates with the Slavic world.
That was part of my question, because in Ukrainian culture, poppy seeds are extremely important.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it has to do with sustenance, like that, you know, there's protein in it. It's like a nut.
And it's calming. Calming properties, very important.
And there's actually, I've come across theories that mentions when the Slavs came into Europe, it's actually they brought poppies with them. So it could be when they were coming through Iran, Afghanistan, Iran.
Basically,
yeah.
About poppy seeds, we can talk a little bit.
One more hour.
Hours and about spiritual thing. Why is so important? Actually, it's as you says, it's protein. It's
medicine.
Medicine. It's drug. It's way.
Yummy.
Come on, everyone knows that from poppy seeds, it's heroin. It's method of produce heroin, but opium and opium make dreams and open kind of doors to spirit world. But about drugs, we have to say that drug is fine if we know how to use it and not use it just only for fun. And for this reason, poppy seeds is spiritual thing also, because even of, we can say now, dark side of poppy seed, but in the past wasn't dark side. It was thing which it was part of it, but that time it was using by purpose of spirituality, and this is big different from today's how poppies will be ako sa povie zneužiť?
Abused.
Yeah, abused. Takže Preto som nechcel hneď do toho nejak tak to, ale to by bolo na dlho.
So yeah, so
eat
we'll run a
poppy
special on
seeds.
poppy seeds.
Ďakujem.
Kasim, you're welcome. So,
Great. I think we can round that up.
yeah. Would you like to do it, Susie?
Well, yes, thank you very much for
The
joining
honor
us
is yours.
for another webinar gathering. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Weleslaw, for sharing your knowledge, for sharing your passion. Also, you can really feel it. You can see that it's not just coming from the mind, but it's coming from the spirit and from the heart. And I think that's what's really captivating 71 of us to stay here for over 2 hours. You're feeding us, not just knowledge, but you're activating and nourishing our souls with this and our memories and our connections to the lineage and our ancestors and also the native faith. So
I try to make short.
yeah. No,
Thank
it's
you
been
for the
wonderful.
ritual. That was truly special. Thank you for making it part of this.
And happy Advent Sunday. It's evening here. So we're lighting our 4th Advent wreath candles. And may you do the same. May you enjoy your day and have a blessed day.
Have a wonderful Christmas and Happy New Year. And we will see you in the new year. We'll see you in 2022. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for spending this time with us. And we look forward to connecting with you.
And maybe if we will decide it, we will make another dinner about spring.
Absolutely.
So in 3 months.
Yeah. So we'll see you soon. To welcome spring.
Yes.
So goodbye. Blessed holidays. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Ďakujeme, Weleslaw.
Do widzenia.
Do widzenia.
Oh.